Alright, welcome back. Hope everyone's having a lovely day, a lovely night wherever you're from. Enjoying this bunny event right now. I know we're kind of winding down now and we're waiting for hard mode to unlock, but whether you're trying to just do side content, push the story, or even trying to push solo raid, I hope you're having fun with it, and I'm going to do my best to provide extra help when it comes to solo raid. But before we get started, I want to give a massive shout out to the channel members on this channel. So thank you Arttu, thank you KingPresiden, thank you Chris, thank you Dario, thank you Simon, thank you Beebee. Your guys' immense generosity to support me even further means so much to me, and I hope I make it worth your while. With that being said, though, whether you're a subscriber, whether you're a channel member, you liking the videos, you subscribing, watching means so much to me, because without you guys, there wouldn't be a channel to begin with. So thank you so much, and it means a lot to me. And with today's video, like I mentioned earlier, I am going to actually be working on solo raid. And it's not going to be perfect, I'm not the best, but I feel confident enough that I've done a lot of more solo raid runs, especially in challenge mode, to try to provide some extra insight. But before we get started, I want to also give a massive shout out to Sky, because he has a huge video right now that actually gives a better idea with team building, compositions and stuff, and he's just goated, and he gave me some ideas to help my team finish off and do good. And I'll also link that he has a Google Doc in the comments. That Google Doc has like all the old teams, all the old solo raids and union raids. It's really good, and it's a good spreadsheet to look at, especially if you need extra help. So I will put that in the comments. But let's get started, and before we get started, I actually want to talk about 4 criteria that this guide's going to have. First, I'm just going to do a quick overview of everything, maybe some rule of thumbs when it comes to this guide, this boss in general. I'm going to showcase the teams that I'm personally using. I'm going to go back and then show substitutes that you can use for this team. And then fourth, I'm going to go and do a run with a random team and give advice with how to do the run and what to avoid, what you need to worry about, everything like that. So let's get started, and first things first that you should be aware is that no matter what teams you build with this, remember that you need at least one iron-coated ally for Gravedigger in challenge mode specifically, especially because of his shield. Because if you don't have an iron-coated ally to pierce that shield, it'll be game over. Now, with that being said, I also want to say that not everyone's going to have the Nikkes that I have. Not everyone's going to have all the Nikkes, because at the end of the day, you need 25 Nikkes. That is a lot of Nikkes. This is endgame. So don't feel discouraged if you don't have that many Nikkes, you don't have enough even with substituting. Remember that this is technically like one of the only endgame contents that Nikke has, and it's pure DPS check and the amount of Nikkes you have. So just remember that it won't be perfect, but I'm going to try my best to try to help everybody. And don't feel discouraged even if you can't push, because I know there's some people who are new and they only could get to like maybe like 1 to 4 and they're still struggling in between all of that. So don't feel discouraged, because at the end of the day, it's a good benchmark to see how you improved in the next month. Now, with all that out the way, let's get started. And I want to showcase the teams that I have that worked for me personally. I went with my team 1. I used Crown, Litter, Red Hood, Alice, and Rapunzel. I use Crown because she's a real good beast with Red Hood, and I would personally use D-Killer Wife here in this instance, but I don't have her unfortunately, so I'm using Litter. And there are a few options you can have, because I feel like Alice is a flex DPS, but I personally chose to use Alice because I have her really invested, and she's just like a mini Red Hood. Mini Red Hood, don't think that she's like on par or anything. And then Rapunzel, I'm not using Naga here because I need her to be with another schoolgirl team. And Rapunzel has a good enough healing factor that she can help proc the skill 2 for Crown. So I have her invested, but maybe you'll have like a Pepper invested or something that can work in that case too. But for me, that's what works best. Now with my team 2, I'm using Doro, Marciana, Summer Anise, Privity, and Scarlet. I'm using Doro because her distributed damage also is like a good pairing with Privity. Marciana because I need her healing to help heal Scarlet because she loses a lot of health. I use Summer Anise because she's a real good beast with Privity, because Summer Anise's thing is that you really want to make sure she has very low ammo, because she has like a strong attack on her final bullet. So always making sure that she only has like 1 or 2 rounds constantly is a big help. And Privity's burst specifically does lower ammo, so that's what I really use her for, and that's why Scarlet's just kind of like that flex DPS. You don't necessarily need Scarlet, but I just have her here on my team. Now, with my team 3, I'm using the schoolgirls, and this is far from perfect, because this team should actually belong in team 1, but I'll talk about that later. Because right now I'm using Tia, Jackal, Naga, Scarlet Black Shadow, and I'm using Laplace. Now, this is where it gets iffy, because I would actually be able to use Litter here if I use D-Killer Wife in my first team. Unfortunately, that's just not the case. And one of the biggest problems with Jackal is that you'll be waiting to burst with her so the whole team can burst. And waiting and trying to hit those circles from Gravedigger can make the difference from you getting one shot or not and having to redo the whole run. So there are a few RNG cases that I've had to redo my runs with this team specifically, but that's something that I just want to be aware that you can also change up. And I want to talk about better ways you can actually utilize the schoolgirls, because this is not good utilization at all in my opinion, but this is just working for me with what I have. Now, when it comes to my team 4, I actually feel confident in this team, especially looking at some tips that Sky gave. I'm using Volume, Blanc, Sugar, Noir, and Moderna. Now, one of the biggest things with this team is that you do not want to burst with Moderna, because Sugar and Noir will help just do a lot of DPS to Gravedigger, and, you know, the CDR reduction with Volume, and then Blanc just being an overall beast. This is a good team, except Moderna can actually can lose out on DPS compared to Sugar, because Sugar is just a beast with Noir. So I recommend using Sugar and Noir in this case if you decide to use this team, if you have these characters. Now, my final team, I'm using the quote-unquote shotgun meta. Now, this shotgun meta team, quote-unquote, is alright, but if I had them fully invested, they would be a beast. But right now, I don't have them invested much at all. I think the highest I have them is some 6, some 7. Most of the time, they're 555. So just be aware. I'm using Bunny Alice, Leona, Bunny Soda, Privity Maid, and I'm using Tuve. This is my 5th and final team, and it actually honestly helped save me from getting more lost in the rankings when it came to what I was pushing. But now that we have everything done, I'm going to actually go back and I want to talk about some substitutes that you can do with each team. And it's not going to be perfect because there's going to be some multiple repeats of substitutions, and that's when you're going to realize that having so many Nikkes is kind of important when it comes to trying to substitute for flex characters, and that's the unfortunate part of this. So it might not be perfect, and I apologize. I am trying my best. But with Team 1, like I said earlier, this team is not perfect because I would rather have Crown in another team, but I would want to actually, if you don't have Crown, and if you don't want to use Litter here or Rapunzel or anything, what team I recommend would actually be using, you should actually use is actually end up utilizing the schoolgirls, because with the schoolgirls, let's say for instance, Litter was actually D-Killer Wife. Let's say I had that team. Then I would actually be using Red Hood and maybe Alice. This would be the team I would have if Litter was replaced with D-Killer Wife. This would be the team that I would want to use, but unfortunately I do not have D-Killer Wife, so I'm not going to see that piercing effect. That extra damage you'll get for both Red Hood and Alice would be huge. Unfortunately, I don't. But if you do have these characters, I recommend using this specific team because this would be insane. But if you don't, then you can obviously swap Tia for Crown, swap D-Killer Wife for Litter or Volume, swap Naga for, even if you don't have those characters, you could probably swap Naga for Rupee. So, like, let's recreate the team that I'm saying right now and then have this maybe. And then if you don't have Red Hood, you can actually swap Red Hood for maybe Alice, or even swap Alice for using Snow White, because Snow White's really, really good. However, I don't have her invested at all. However, this could be a really good team too if you don't have Alice invested, but you have Maxwell invested. Having this Snow White Maxwell team would be so helpful. Unfortunately, I just don't have them invested as much as I want to make them very useful for me personally. But that's just my case, and that's just some way that you can try to reorganize my team 1 and some other ways you can go about it. It's not perfect, but I do, try to give some ideas. Obviously, this is too many iron-coated allies, so you don't want to try to use so much of them. But that's just some ideas for different substitutes for everything, right? Now, with all that out the way, we're going to go head off to Team 2. Now, Team 2 is going to be a little bit trickier because I honestly don't think that you can swap out Doro in this case. I feel like Doro is highly necessary. So this is one of those cases that maybe you can try to substitute for another Flex Burst 1 that's 20 seconds. But I think Doro is very necessary for this specific team composition. Now, Marciana is less necessary because with Marciana, you can maybe swap out for maybe Rem, Summer Helm, if you don't have those characters because they were all limiteds, and you have Novel, try and go ahead and use Novel. That is not that bad. If you don't have Novel, you could also use Eleg or even use our girl Biscuit. Those are some other flexes for that specific slot that you can use her for. And let's say you don't have Summer Anise or you don't have Scarlet. I feel like you can swap either of them for maybe Laplas. I feel like that would be a good, option to have her in, is trying to swap out Summer Anise or Scarlet for Laplas. I feel like Privity is very necessary here, so I don't think that there should be a flex. However, regardless, if you don't have Scarlet, Laplas, or Summer Anise, just try to come up with some different flexes that you can do for DPS. But make sure that just an idea that Doro and Privity should be like a part of that team no matter what if you try to use this comp. It's not perfect. Obviously, there's a lot of substitutes that you can try to do with the flex DPS, so that's kind of vague. But that's some of the problems that it comes with, is that you can try to come up with crazier ideas, but you might have better invested characters than I do to try to make this team even better. Like, that Laplas could probably work better than this. Who knows? Because this is just what I have invested for me personally. Now, when it comes to Team 3, this is where I actually have the Schoolgirls, and it's not perfect by any means, because, I mean, this team is what I would actually recommend not having, because you're not utilizing the Schoolgirls that well. So, what I would actually recommend in this case is maybe using... Even then, I wish I could use Litter in this case, but I don't. Because if I had D-Killer Wife for Team 1, I would use Litter here. I would use Crown, so it would definitely be like this. And I would use a Scarlet Black Shadow. I would use Alice, if possible. If not, I'll swap to Laplas, and if not, I'm just going to use a flex somewhere else, whatever possible. But remember, at the end of the day, you need iron-coated allies. So it's not going to be perfect, but this is what I found to be useful for me, specifically. And then I'm honestly going to use Rapunzel here, because when it comes to trying to use Crown, you need that healer to try to keep up the skill 2 for Crown. If you don't have Rapunzel, then you can use Naga. Remember, if you're using Naga in a Schoolgirl team, then don't use Naga. You can use even Pepper. Now, if you don't have Pepper, but you actually have Bunny Alice, use Bunny Alice, because she can actually help Crown as well. So just be aware of that. And you're really going to need 2 anyway for Bunny Alice, so maybe you'd actually want to utilize her here. That's just some ideas that I want to give you guys, and the preferred team instead of that Schoolgirl team, because I understand that Schoolgirl team is not perfect at all, and it would be actually better with my Team 1. I just don't have the full roster that I want to try to utilize her, you know what I mean? But with that being said, now we're going to move on to Team 4 for substitutes. And now with Team 4, this one was very interesting to me, because I did not expect the results I got from this. But let's say you don't have volume. I would recommend using Litter, if applicable, or volume. I feel like either of those are good. But like I said, we've already mentioned those 2 characters before, so that's what I mean, that it starts becoming a struggle when trying to coming up with substitutes. So it's not perfect. Now, this specific team, you need Blanc and Noir, so I really don't feel like I can try to provide flexes for those specifically, because I feel like the main part of this team that I'm trying to highlight is Blanc and Noir. But what you can actually recommend, if let's say you don't have Sugar and you don't have Moderna, what can you do here? You can actually use maybe Celine, and because of the recent Bunny banner, you can actually use Soda Bunny if you want. Or the recommended, if you have her fully invested, is actually using Winter Ludmilla, if you have her. Or even Maxwell, if you have her. I just don't, and my Sugar is the best that I have in this case. And if you don't have Moderna here, honestly, Moderna is not highly necessary, because you're just using her as just straight extra damage. You're not using her to burst with. So, if you don't have her, you can honestly swap in, like I said before, you can swap in Moderna for Soline, Sugar, Soda Bunny, or Maxwell. So you can either swap those 2 for 2 other characters, or vice versa, you know what I mean? But I can't really do much more in terms of substitutes, because I think you need Blanc and Noir for this specific team. Now, when it comes to Team 5, this team is actually kind of fun, because it's the new shotgun team. However, I'm going to try my best to provide some, because there are 3 units you need to make this whole team work, so it's not viable. So, let's say that you don't have some Leona. You can either use Guilty, Dala, Crown, or even Summer Helm, but not everybody has that, so I feel like a lot of picks that people might pick to try to flex is either Dala or Guilty, so just be aware that Dala or Guilty can work as a flex here. let's say you don't have Tuve here. What can you use? So if you don't have Tuve, you can honestly swap Tuve for Volume or Miranda. That can be an option as well. It's not perfect, but it is an option that can work. So just keep in mind that that is available, but it's not perfect. Now, when it comes to Soda Bunny, I feel like we really need her for this team. But if you don't have Privity made because you're still new, you can honestly swap in Privity made for either Sugar or Drake. I actually think Drake is not bad for a stand-in when it comes to this specific team composition. But I think a fourth character here would be a flex, like for that like other burst one that you need. It could be a flex. You don't have to have another burst one. You could either put in Summer Anise, Guilty, Summer Helm, but I highly recommend just putting in Summer Bunny here, just making that work to your best. These are some substitutes that I have in mind, and that's what I'm using for my 2 shotgun teams specifically. Obviously, you could probably mix and match some of the characters when it comes to my 4th team and 5th team, but just remember that you need that iron-coated ally. So, for instance, my 1 iron-coated ally is Sugar, and then my 1 iron-coated ally for this is Soda. If you had Summer Helm, you would have an extra, but, you know, that is what it is. I don't have Summer Helm, so unfortunately that is not an option for me, so I just have to deal with this. And that's some of the problems that even I have, so don't feel too bad even if you don't have some of those substitutes, because even I don't. Now, with all that out the way, there's only one thing left to do, and that's trying to come up with how to actually run it. So I already finished my challenges for the day, so I'm just going to end up using my 4th team that I didn't mess up when trying to come up with substitutes, and I'm just going to play it and talk through it and give ideas of what you need to worry about, why you need the iron-coated allies, and how it gets difficult near the end. So let's just get to it. And remember, one of the things that you need to do also is make sure you don't have burst animations on. I know they're awesome, but, you know, this is like a competitive game mode, and burst animations just constantly get in the way. So either let the burst animations go by and then restart it without it. But remember, right when you start, these little screws that Gravedigger spit out, you need to destroy them. Because if you don't destroy them, Gravedigger has a long stun for each of the Nikkes that get hit by it, and it's just not fun or easy to utilize. And in my opinion, it just kind of makes or break a run. And then also remember that that purple shield that you saw me just destroy really quick, you need an iron-coated ally for that. So remember, that's why you need that iron-coated ally. Because if you can't destroy that, none of your Nikkes are going to be able to do damage, and Gravedigger's just going to ruin that run for you. And then this is when it just starts becoming difficult, because you need to start hitting all the circles. But like you saw me do, I almost whiffed that, so that's how tight it becomes. But also, don't feel worried that you need to honestly do it in one shot. You have a chance to have a break, because if you miss these 2 shots, it'll go faster, but it won't instant kill you. So you still get like a lifeline. That being said though, I highly recommend just trying to push through it. This is when it starts showing the DPS check of trying to keep up with this time. If you can't keep up with bursting in time or being able to destroy it, you'll start falling behind, and you won't be able to stun Gravedigger like I just did right here. And that's when it starts getting complicated, because if you don't get that stun, you don't get a moment to break, and then you're going to need to shoot more screws. And if you don't have that DPS to break those screws or break through the circles in time, it's just going to be a rough time in challenge mode. And even some of my teams near the end started feeling that way. Especially that shotgun meta team with Soda Alice. It's so hard to try to keep up with the circles. But like this purple, only Sugar's able to shoot through them. That's why you really need that. And these screws get so close that even it's not perfect for me. And that's why I really want to showcase it, that it's not going to be perfect every time. And then by the time you get to a certain point, you're just going to be doing for like a minute 20, just shooting at these circles. And it's just going to feel really, really fast, really, really annoying, because you're going to have to try to keep up with shooting all the circles before they expire. And I think sometimes, don't quote me on this, but when it comes to actually doing a run with this final part, when you get 3 circles, I think you actually do get a lifeline. It'll get faster, but he won't kill you instantly. You'll still have a chance to try to keep up with it after the fact. But it's not going to be perfect every time. And honestly, despite this stun, where you get a break, after this, that's all Gravedigger is going to be doing now. For the last, like, minute, it's just going to be this. And it's just going to see if you can keep up with it until either the mission ends or you die. That's just how it's going to work with the DPS. And I know that's kind of unfortunate, because there's not much you can do in trying to, like, dodge cover or anything. Because most of the time, if you mess up and your Nikkes, like, die, it's going to be a one-shot. You don't really get a huge grace period when it comes to that. like being able to like tank at least one hit. Nah, you kind of usually die instantly, which is the unfortunate part. But like I said earlier, we're already getting down to the final 5 seconds here, and it's just constantly shooting circles. It's like I'm playing Osu. But that's kind of what you need to be careful for and what to be wary about when it comes to actually playing. It's not going to be that easy for a lot of them, because sometimes you won't even be able to shoot the drills themselves, or even be able to shoot the circles, and then you'll get killed almost instantly at like maybe 200k damage. That is my way of trying to, you know, push all of that. And it's not going to be perfect, but I hope you actually got some advice from this video. And it's not perfect, but that's why I recommend checking Sky's video, checking his team composition Google Doc that I will be putting in the description. None of this is perfect. However, I have tried my best, because at the end of the day, my ranking, I'm at 155 right now, 1.55%. So this is what helped me get to this point. And I just hope the best of luck for you, and don't feel discouraged if you can't even try to recreate team comps, try to push damage as much. Try your best. That's all you can do, because at the end of the day, this is just endgame. And with all endgame content, you'll just get a good benchmark of how much you'll improve the next time this comes around. So don't feel discouraged. And with all that being said, I think that's everything that I've wanted to talk about. This is kind of a long one. Sorry about that. I kind of expected that this would be a long one, but I hope it was informative and you guys actually learned something. I know it's not perfect, and if you guys have other team comp ideas that I did not mention, please put them in the description. Let everybody know. At the end of the day, I just want everyone to like get help from everyone, not just me. So if you have other team comp ideas, put them in the description. What helped you? That'd be awesome. And once again, thank you guys so much for the love and support that you guys have given me. We're growing exponentially fast. We're already at like 625 subs, which is crazy that we're getting closer and closer to 1K. It's really, really awesome. And thank you so much for that opportunity. And I'm going to just keep on going. And I hope you guys stick around. Now, I hope you guys have a lovely day, a lovely night, wherever you're from. And remember, as always, stay tuned for the next one. Take care.